to work here with Representative Dee Margo, and thank you so much for accepting during session to do this small interview with you, Mr. Margo.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Well, as a Hispanic and through my work with Bosses Action and meeting with thousands of Hispanics, I know that Hispanics have conservative values. Can you share with me the ways that you have observed these among Americans of Hispanic background?
Well, I think, especially in El Paso, and of course, my grandfather came from the Rio Grande Valley, and the Hispanics that I see in El Paso, when we're overwhelmingly Hispanic, are very conservative, and their focus seems to be, I like to talk about the 3 F's, faith, family, and freedom. They're in favor of American values, and in spite of how they may be portrayed by certain political parties or leaders within those parties or spokespersons, I think their value structure is every bit as conservative as mine is.
I know that you are an author of House Concurrent Resolution 88 or HCR 88. Can you briefly explain this resolution and what would you like to accomplish with it?
Well, HCR 88 by Representative Garza simply states that it encourages the federal government to finally enact a broad, comprehensive immigration program. We haven't done anything probably since '86 with the Reagan plan, and there was a lot of amnesty there, and that's now become a bad word. But we've got to do something we've got to control our borders, and then we've got to do a rational immigration process for those that are here and those that want to come in. I mean, we are a nation of immigrants. It just makes sense to do so.
And that's right. One of the things that I usually speak when they ask me to talk about immigration is about the fact that to find a sensible immigration solution, we have to be realistic. We cannot think too much about deporting everybody because that's not realistic, but we cannot think about a full blanket amnesty either.
No.
So we need to find some.
It's got to be a rational process.
Rational, that's right.
But it seems to be it's kind of bifurcated in that I don't think you're going to have people, especially on the East Coast and in Washington, listening to a rational immigration process until we can say that our borders are safe and we control them. I'm not sure we're going to really get to that point, but we certainly aren't going to get there. We're not there now by a long shot.
That's right, Mr. Margo. Now, how in the world did a Republican win in El Paso? Is this a shift in the voting trends, or how can the Republican Party maintain a stronghold in El Paso?
Well, District 78, I believe, is a Republican district, not by a significant majority if you go by, voting patterns over the last several elections, but I think it's more Republican than it is Democrat. El Paso's been kind of an isolated community, and I think the biggest thing we need to change is the straight ticket voting. I mean, when we can get to the point of people voting without, I can't tell you the number of people who came up to me and said they thought they voted for me when they voted straight ticket on the Democratic Party lever. They just didn't discern, weren't aware, whatever you want to say, and it's not helpful. And I think a vote is a sacred right. That's one reason I was a big, strong backer of the voter ID that we've passed here in the House already earlier this year. It's a sacred right, and it ought to be. You ought to use your basic intellect and intelligence to make a choice. That's what we're called to do when we vote. And to blindly think that one particular party, Republican or Democrat, has all the best candidates is wrong. I don't think that's the case. So you've got to apply your gray matter and a little discernment and figure out who's the best. But historically, El Paso has been very heavily voting on the straight ticket side, so you have to counter that. In my district, historically, we've typically had the same number of Republicans and the same number of Democrats voting on the straight ticket. So it's the independent voters that I have an appeal to, and I think El Paso District 78 is definitely Republican. I think there's more conservative values in El Paso than people give us credit for, and I think hopefully I'm adding a little change in the thought process with my being down here in Austin.
Well, it's interesting because not long ago I was invited to speak at El Paso. I went actually with Supreme Court Justice Eva Guzman, and when I gave my speech and I explained why Hispanics we have to vote Republican, the best joy that I have is among the audience. There were several Democrats, and among those, 3 of them came and told me that after they heard me speaking, they were switching parties and they were voting Republican, and that made my day that day. So
Sure.
I'm glad for you too. Well, El Paso was recently named the safest city in America, yet its neighbor across the border, Juarez, Mexico, is considered the most dangerous city in North America. How can we explain this, Mr. Margo?
Well, a friend of mine refers to it as competing realities. And within Juarez, there are competing realities. You have the human tragedies and the violence, but then on the other side, in the manufacturing area, in the maquilas, the manufacturing is actually growing, and we measure that by the truck traffic coming north, which, you know, we send raw materials to Mexico, they're assembled and they come north, and the truck traffic was up double-digit in 2010. I think close to 20%. So there's, within Juarez alone, you have competing realities. You have the increase in commerce and growth in the manufacturing, and the maquila permits are up, but yet you have all the violence and the murders that are occurring in other parts of Juarez. Well, it's like that in El Paso. We're separate from the violence, has not spilled over, in spite of what some media has been saying on a national basis that I think is misrepresenting what's going on there. We can't deny the human tragedy that's going on there. However, what's happening in El Paso is totally unrelated, and we're doing fine, and our statistics show that. Plus, that when they talk about the drug trade and the human trafficking and everything, it usually bypasses El Paso. It goes into the interior of the United States and north of Texas. So it's not like we're a hub for that. We're not like, I think we're different from the Tijuana, San Diego area, and but we've got to stop it, and the people of Mexico have got to take back their city, and you know, I pray daily for our sister city in Juarez. And some people say, well, we shouldn't refer to it as a sister city. I do. I mean, we're intertwined in commerce and families for over 400 years. It is a sister city, and so what goes on there does impact El Paso. However, in the strict sense of our border and the violence, no, it is not impacting us, but we also need to be mindful of that. And as I say, I pray daily for the integrity of the government of Mexico, their police, and their military. People don't want to come to El Paso and leave Juarez, but they're having to. Those that can afford to and need to are doing so. So there is some migration north.
Now, Mr. Margo, not many people know here in Texas, and you did mention it briefly a little bit earlier, regarding the fact that you have Hispanic blood in you, and can you explain where is that Hispanic blood coming from?
Well, first of all, my great-grandmother came from Mexico.
Okay.
My grandfather was born and reared in Rio Grande City. He was one of 11 children. He didn't speak English till he was 18. His name was Elias Margo, and he went to the University of Texas, where he learned to speak English at the University of Texas. And then he went to Galveston Med School and was a general practitioner back in the early part of the 1900s. Well, he moved to Oklahoma City. I don't know why he moved to Oklahoma City, but he ended up going to Oklahoma City and got a specialty in orthopedics and was an orthopedic surgeon there in Oklahoma City. In fact, as he founded a hospital that's there today in Oklahoma City, and my uncle was an orthopedic surgeon. Mm-hmm. My dad was born in Oklahoma City, and I was too. But the family roots on the Margo side are in Rio Grande City. As I say, he was one of 11, and it's interesting. I've got relationships here in the house. Ryan Guillen, who's a state representative from Rio Grande City, his great-grandmother was a Margo. Oh, okay. And Rafael Anchia is married to a second cousin of mine.
Oh, wow.
So I've got all these primos here, you know.
That's right. Well, Mr. Margo, I want to tell you it was a joy to meet you today and to have this interview. And I want to thank you not only for serving the people of your district, but the people of Texas. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Edgar.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.